On this week's Hot List, losing ground. Indonesia falls in a global corruption report. Does the president care? Uniform choice. Should flight attendants on the national air carrier be allowed to wear religious head coverings? And budget vows. Why couples are choosing simple office weddings over banquet buffets. Hello and welcome. This is Hot Indonesia. I'm Dalton Tanonaka in Jakarta. Here are my co-hosts. Let's get to it. Linda Ibrahim is a writer and business consultant and an art lover. And Karanina Sunny, business owner, Miss Indonesia 2009, and avid pedal pusher. Hot topic number one, losing ground. It's an annual report by Transparency International based in Berlin. And in the 2022 Corruption Perceptions Index, Indonesia fell 4 points for its biggest decline in 25 years. The country now stands in 110th place out of 180 countries surveyed, behind Southeast Asian neighbors Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Vietnam. The top three least corrupt nations by comparison, according to the CPI, are Denmark, Finland, and New Zealand. You know, ladies, it felt like the corruption fight in the past year at least was a good fight with high-profile cases involving government agencies, but that's not what this report indicates. Linda, what's happening?
I think if we look back towards what has been happening the past few years, there's been a lot of efforts on what we call weakening the KPK, the Corruption Eradication Commission. And if you remember, September 2021, there was this big uproar about 50, I think between 56 to 58 staff members of KPK just being laid off, being let go over an insignificant test about nationalism. You know, I mean, some of the questions on that test were being spilled over to the media, and I look at them and I wonder myself, you know, if I, you know, would have even passed the same question.
If that didn't happen, you're saying that we would have more corruption cases?
I think so. I think the people being let go, out of the 50, let's say 58, I think in total at the end, 44 were being readmitted to the police force, but the ones who didn't were some of the toughest ones. If you recall the gentleman that been assaulted, you know, lose his eyes, you know, he was one of the one they didn't let in, and he was such a prominent figure. He himself went on handcuff a lot of high-profile cases.
So you're saying the Corruption Eradication Commission is a lot weaker now than it was, say, 4 years ago?
That's what's the mood I've been feeling.
Okay, but why does it feel like we've been getting a lot of, you know, big busts with CEOs and government ministers and blah, blah, blah?
Perhaps the way we look at it, it could have even been more.
Okay. So we got some big fish, but there are a lot of others to be had.
There are bigger fish to be had.
Now, Indonesian Corruption Watch, an NGO, says the Joko Widodo years will go down, quote, as the worst since Suharto. That's not good, you know?
I think the difference now is that it's a little bit less organized. I think during the Suharto regime, there were systems in place and things kind of worked a certain way that...
I mean, corruption was less organized.
The corruption was less organized.
Now.
So I think maybe it's a little bit easier to spot because there's no method and rhythm to it. It's just kind of happening all over the place. Whereas I think during the Suharto regime, it was kind of more like organized crime or organized corruption. So it was a little bit neater, you know, and there were formats, and it was just the way that you did things, it's the way that you operated.
You know, sadly, I have to concur with that because a lot of, well, my job, you know, advising for FDI, a lot of old-time investors were saying this, foreign investors. Before, during Suharto time, you get it all done in the beginning. You know, you pay up 1%, they take care of everything down to the counties and everything.
Like a jockey, sort of.
Right.
And this is not legal, right? Let's be clear. Yeah, okay.
But right now, because of the decentralized government, they have to deal with that kind of obstacle every single turn. Because now you have little kings, you have small-time powerful men or women who wanted to have a cut. And before, during Suharto time, because it was centralized, you know, you deal up front. And so for business, I think it's easier, because then you can just compute that upfront payment, everything okay until the completion of the program. I think that contributes a lot.
With democracy comes its problems too.
Unfortunately so.
Okay, another reason now. Critics say that Indonesia's push for international competitiveness has pushed aside Jokowi's attention, pushed aside the intrinsic corruption. For example, the approval of certain legislation like the Jobs Omnibus Creation Law.
Right.
Nina, do you see it that way, that, in the pursuit, the single-minded pursuit of reopening business and invigorating the economy, that graft is being ignored in this process?
Which graft?
Any graft. I mean, you know what I mean? He's not paying attention to fighting corrupt, but he just wants to do business. So even if it's happening, I'll ignore that. That's what some critics say.
I think there needs to be solid protocols and procedures and regulations in place. So pushing businesses forward is definitely a good thing. It's a positive thing. That's really what Indonesia does need to focus on is the industry, and from the ground up, how to make all the industries work together and have a solid foundation so that you can build the economy of the country. But if there's no regulations in place, then yes, it's going to be, as Linda pointed out, that there's a lot of people that want their hands in the same pie, and it's, corruption is just bound to happen because that's the way you got to get things done that way.
Well, I think
there's no regulations in place, and there's no procedures.
There are multiple regulations, actually.
But there's no way to enforce them because the enforcers are the people.
And I think it's a little harsh to say that the president is ignoring corruption in favor of moving ahead economically, right?
I don't think it's that harsh. I think the way that Jokowi has been since actually the very beginning of his tenure is that he wanted to get economy lifted. No, I don't blame him for that. But he has shown, not just on this case, but there have been multiple examples on how he would just sidestep issue in order to get projects off the ground.
Get to the goal.
Yeah. Like, is it really necessary, for example, to build certain airports? If you look at the long-term business scale number, environmental effects.
So you're saying certain projects are being fast-tracked, and regardless of what's happening, money changing
because
hands.
I think
and all
he
that.
wants to be known as the man who built Indonesia into a developed country. I think that's what he wishes to be known of.
And the president did have a response to the CPI report. He said that, quote, he will evaluate and self-correct ourselves. With 1 year left in his term, it'll be difficult to fix what the critics are saying.
Remember, we were talking, I think, a couple of weeks ago about his right-hand man, Luhut Pangaribuan, even made a statement that all of those right-handed capture, it was wrong. It was bad for the reputation of the
not
country.
good.
And that he's the man who's being seen as sort of like a real president in the back.
Yeah, the prime minister.
But I think it goes down to something as basic as just the infrastructure. For example, like the fixing of the roads, and it's kind of purposely done where it's not going to last for very long, because every time they get the tender, they get the project again.
Gee, I don't want to think that, but if that's what's happening, it's not good. And the report was not good, and we're not looking good very well internationally.
I think more importantly is, aside from just being on the list and knowing that there's so much corruption, is what are the steps that we can take to fix the problem?
Well,
how don't bring all businesses to a halt? How can they enforce the regulations and keep things still moving smoothly?
He's had 9 years, and and 1 year left. Okay, Hot Indo will continue shortly with uniform choice. Will we be seeing headscarves on the national air carrier? Have your party with us at the Mr. Moonlight Show in the Mo Bar at the Mandarin Oriental, Jakarta. You'll enjoy 5-star music and fun, sponsored by Tatler Indonesia, the Indonesia Channel, 1619 Cigars, and Bali High Beer. Wednesday, February 15th from 8 p.m. with no entrance fee. Call the hotel for reservations and let's have fun.
I love Indonesia. I love the food. Yummy. Wow. I'm gonna hunt 4 ingredients. Now I'm ready to cook. Let's go to the kitchen. It's done. Let's meet to eat.
Foodiepedia on the Indonesia Channel.
Hi, I'm Handi Kurniawan and I'm watching the Indonesia channel in Hong Kong.
Hi, I'm Rory He. You're watching the Indonesia channel, the home of good sport.
I'm Trần Minh Ngân of VCCTV Net Việt in Hanoi.
I'm Thairat Thumya of Thailand's Thairat TV in Bangkok.
I'm Monica Sambodet from the National Television of Cambodia in Phnom Penh.
I'm Raymond Go of Malaysia's TV3 in Kuala Lumpur.
I'm Glenda Chong of Singapore's Channel News Asia.
I'm Sachin Thami of the Indonesia channel at the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta.
This is your weekly look into the dynamic Southeast Asia region.
ASEAN Today on the Indonesia Channel.
The Best of Bali takes viewers on a special guided tour of the treasures of the island of the gods.
Well, the romantic dinner is beautiful.
The Best of Bali, only on the Indonesia Channel.
You're watching Hot Indonesia with Linda, Nina, and me. Here's hot topic number 2, uniform choice. The issue of wearing religious head coverings has now gone sky high. Islamic leaders say they are surprised to learn that female flight attendants on the country's national air carrier, Garuda, do not wear hijab. The airline says there is no outright ban, but workers say they are told not to wear it on duty. Now, Garuda Airport and office workers, you've seen it, they are allowed to wear headscarves on duty. And flight attendants are allowed to wear it on Hajj pilgrim flights, but only seasonal to the Middle East. Now, I have not heard of any complaints or protests by workers or any internal problems. So, Nina, what's the issue here?
Yeah. Actually, I hadn't even noticed it until this was mentioned.
But you've seen, right? You haven't seen.
And now that I think about it, that's true. In flight, I don't think I've seen it, but I would absolutely advocate for people to have the right to dress according to their religion. Absolutely. But I wasn't aware that there was a ban or that they were told not to. I mean, of course, I don't know what happens internally, but I thought it was just personal choice that maybe on a flight, the ones who don't wear it, it's by choice. But
you know, there again, by choice. If you're kind of firmly told inside you shouldn't wear it, we're not all wearing it.
But is that what's happening?
Yeah, there's no outright ban. I think if they put it in writing, there'd be a problem. You know, if there was in their dress code policy. But I don't think that. I'm told that's not the case. Now, this is the opposite of the usual issue we talk about, where women are being forced to wear headscarves. So, Linda, I'm sure Garuda could either enforce a dress code either way, and I'm sure women know about this policy before they join the company. They have to know.
I think what's been going on is that companies just give, this is the list of the uniforms that you're going to wear, and outside that are not allowed. I think that's what's the case. And Garuda case, perhaps, in that picture and list of uniform, there's no hijab. However, it's incorrect to say that in Indonesia you don't have airlines that allow flight attendants to wear them. There are 2 that I've seen myself.
No, I've seen the hijab.
Sriwijaya and Wings Air.
No, I'm just talking about the national air carrier.
In flight.
In flight.
In flight. I've seen them. What I remember is that the hijab is very sleek. It's almost like the sporty one, so it goes, it doesn't go in the way of them moving around. And because one of the jobs of flight attendants is to be agile and helpful of the passengers, and especially when there's an emergency on board.
I don't think it's a safety issue. I think
no, but I've heard that's one of the ones being mentioned as a safety issue.
Here. Because
not just here, internationally.
The Middle East carriers all wear head cover, and they
very different. I've flown Jordan Air was the very first one that I knew back in the 80s who had like a semblance of it's a semblance. It's a pillbox hat with a little bit of a scarf here, and that's being no, but that's not hijab. That's completely different because you totally saw you could see the hair, you could see the neck and everything. Very different than what Wings and Sriwijaya Air chose to do. Theirs is more like the sportswear hijab, like the Nike one. If you remember the very sleek one. So very different than the Middle East. And Saudi Arabia does not even have female flight attendants. So
they don't?
They don't.
I've never flown in Saudi Arabia.
Okay. I've checked actually.
I mean, I've been on Etihad and Emirates.
Etihad, Emirates copy their headgear from the Jordan Air.
Right. Okay.
It's exactly like that.
Okay, and let's get back to the point of if it's not a religious edict, okay? If it's not talking about religion, whether you can wear it or not, I understand what they're doing because employers want your staff to look more international and not bias your customer or your passenger either way. What I mean is, I know one TV station here in Indonesia that bans the hijab for its anchors on set, on the air.
Do they say it ban or they say
Suggested.
you have to?
No, they're not going to be allowed on the air if they wear it. And you know, we've both worked in local TV stations, and we understand that rationale, right?
I wasn't aware of that.
Okay, well, our former co-host on this program, Sanjina Malakiano, actually, and she tells the story, she left her TV station because they wouldn't allow her to wear her hijab on air. So it's in a private company, it's you can do what you want, right? You can dictate what you do, and you don't have to work for them. But in the case of a national air carrier, it's different. They're government funded, right?
Interestingly, though, if I remember correctly, I think about less than 5 years ago, the government of Aceh province required all female flight attendants arriving on Aceh to be covering themselves. And Garuda does have flights to Aceh, and the flight attendants on that flight will wear them once they land in Aceh. I mean, I've seen pictures.
Before they deplane?
Yeah, before they, as soon as like they're like over Medan or something and they start wearing it, So I wonder if, and Garuda obviously does it for the Hajj season, so.
Yeah. No, even when we did a program in Aceh 1 year when I was with the local station, I mean, our anchor, my co-anchor who normally doesn't wear hijab, wore it on the show.
Respect,
And I think all international people who come in and do stories, you respect the culture.
Yeah.
But in this case, we're talking about employment. So in the end, I hope it comes down to personal conviction. And I wouldn't be surprised in the future or near future, there might be a Garuda flight attendant or two who say, hey, I really want to wear it. And they push the issue, and let's see what happens. But they got to be prepared to lose a job, right? It's about conviction.
Right. If that really is part of their regulations.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm told it's not part of their written regulations, but it's strongly suggested. And I've asked flight attendants who work now, and they said, we're told not to wear. I mean, but no one's going to admit to it. Yeah, it's one of those unwritten things. So, but do you agree? If someone wants to wear it and they work for Garuda, they should have the right.
I think anyone in Indonesia should be protected in the sense and advocated to personal choice if that's what they personally want to do, if their dress code according to their religion.
And the other way around. A company cannot force you if you don't feel like you have to, right? Yeah. Okay, more Hot Indo is ahead with Budget Vows, getting married in an office for less than $2.
Produk lokal memang handal, kreasi lokal memang spesial. Ayo beli buatan
this is Anggun and you're watching the Indonesia channel, hot programs, cool people.
I'm Caitlin Turner, and welcome to Yoga Bliss. Exhale, reaching down to triangle pose. Roll your knee out and up to the sky, breathing here.
Yoga Bliss, only on the Indonesia channel. This is the Indonesia channel.
You are watching iPop Playland.
iPop on the Indonesia channel.
You're watching Hot Indonesia from Jakarta. Hot topic number 3, budget vows. It's a trend that began during the COVID-19 pandemic for couples in love, getting married in a local religious affairs office in place of a large wedding event. All that's needed is simple paperwork and the payment of 30,000 rupiah or $2, and you're legally wed. Tempo magazine reports that this practice has ongoing appeal, and it's easy to see why. Nina, you save time and money.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different kinds of traditions. There's traditional weddings and white weddings, and things can just sort of expand and become
out of control.
Out of control, yes, especially when it's your family,
Yes.
you know, all of their friends and work relations, and everybody needs to get invited. So I would definitely understand how people want to forget all of that headache and all of that, all of the planning and the huge budget that comes along with it. I mean, if it's really just between two people getting married and they want to be practical, absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of times the family wants the big thing. But you know, this of course is an economic issue when it comes down to it, I think, because many couples would love to have a big wedding if they could afford it.
Yeah.
Right? You'd want to invite your office workers, your schoolmates.
Not really. There's a shift in the younger generation. Precisely what Nina was saying, because they'd seen all the headaches involving in the big weddings. There's always going to be the second cousins or the third cousin that people forgot.
But if they had the finances, they would do it.
It's not the money.
And it's not their choice. A lot of time, as Nina said, it's the family, it's the parents.
Relations from the parents, and so it's not really about the budget.
The ones that have 5,000 people, it's crazy, right?
Right.
You've been to those.
You're meeting people that you don't even know, and it's supposed to be your day.
Yeah. Even
so
if
I
you have the
absolutely
money,
understand.
they don't want it.
Okay, but the other extreme end, which we're talking about, is two people, their parents paying $2 in an office. I think that's just a matter of
Well, just being
convenience.
practical and getting it done. But I think maybe some things have changed over the pandemic where people were getting married by Zoom.
Yeah, yeah.
So
this
maybe
is just
it's kind of changed.
extension to that.
Yeah.
You know, if that was accepted during the pandemic, then maybe.
So you think most of those people
lifestyle has shifted so that
in the
people
KUA
now
offices, they chose to do that if they had a choice? Do you mean they want to get married in an office for $2?
I mean, I think they've seen a lot of people do it over Zoom during the pandemic, where
Yeah.
it was just the couple where they were at and everybody else was virtual. And this can be done. And I don't think so much is the big day; it's how you live the rest of your life with your, with.
And the way they look at it.
And maybe you can have a better honeymoon
And
or
the
a
way
better
that you
vacation afterwards.
Save your money.
The way you look at it is that, we just get married, just the two of us at the office with our parents. But now, with the technology, we can also share that with the rest of the people through Zoom or through video, YouTube. And I've seen a real YouTube wedding, of a wedding in Bali that I was not invited to. And it's becoming very acceptable now to not feel that you're being sidelined, not being invited, which was a big case for Indonesia before, right? So now it's like, okay, you are invited to watch the
That's like watching TV. I want to be there if I could, right?
Depends how
it's
close you
their
are
wedding,
with the
isn't it?
person.
I mean, if they invite me and I had a choice, I'd rather go instead of being
I'd
there
rather
like
go
that.
on trips.
Okay.
But it's their wedding, let them be happy.
Last point, on
rather take off
the
for like
other
3
end,
months.
on the other end, coming out of this pandemic, is the return of the lavish wedding
Sure,
event, which
sure.
hotels are telling me that
Yeah.
they are getting booked more and more, and you're getting those thousands and thousands of people. So I guess in the end, it's what you want and what you can afford.
All right.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more on what you want to do, because if at least the ones getting viral on Twitter, some of them I knew through someone else, and I knew they could afford to do a big one. They didn't want
And they
to.
went small.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, it's
I'm happy
choice.
for them. The pictures, they look happy, So yay. One of them was a personal assistant of a friend of mine,
All right.
and they definitely could have.
So the day
afforded-
was more about them than them.
But I don't think there are any more
Yes.
Zoom weddings anymore. I mean, that's kind of past.
No.
Please, invite me, I'll go. Or don't invite me. Okay, it is feedback time now, and Moore had this to say about whether Indonesia should hand out free condoms, as France is doing. Why are they encouraging free and safe sex rather than sex after marriage? And on the topic of Bali being on the list of the world's favorite destinations, Gibran said, I think Sulawesi is better than Bali. Here's how to contact us with your feedback. Email at hotIndo@theindonesiachannel.com, or please comment through our Hot Indonesia or Indonesia channel, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages. Final words, Linda.
It's been a very sad week for people in Turkey and Syria. Large earthquake happened. Thousands of people have been displaced and killed. And so I would like to extend my condolences to the people in Turkey and Syria, and hope for a faster recovery and no more earthquakes.
Final words, Nina.
Actually, I read, well, first of all, my heartfelt condolences to those in Turkey and Syria over the recent earthquake. And I actually read something interesting that somebody in the Netherlands had tweeted 2 days before that there was going to be a 7.5 earthquake in Turkey, and it was actually correct. And then he also predicted the trembler that was after that as well, and he was also correct about that. So, I mean, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think maybe we need that for Indonesia, because we're a lot of earthquake zones here.
Yeah, and with my final words, I want to join these ladies in offering condolences and hope that those affected by the earthquake in Turkey and Syria recover and rebuild. We are well aware of the dangers and heartbreak of earthquakes, having been hit by severe ones, the most recently in 2018. And having visited Turkey recently, I hope the rebuilding does come in a safe and timely way. And that is Hot Indonesia for this week. For Linda and Nina, I'm Dalton Tanonaka. Thank you for watching. Please join us again next time.